Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Alec Harris, and I am president of GIA Publications, and it is my incredible honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to this webinar and to introduce Scott Rush, who will take it from here. Just a little logistics before we get started. If you see below, there's a Q&A window. If you click on that, please do so and enter any questions that you have. We want to leave as much time as possible at the end of Scott's presentation to go through your questions and make sure we address as many of those as we possibly can. This is really an incredible time. This is the end of school year, and it's a time to discern your band method books for the fall and what we're doing now post-COVID, hopefully with everyone coming back full force, and how we can get ready and how we can prepare. And of course, what a better way to start than with a new band method, a new beginning band method. We are so honored and proud to have published Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Method. We've been working on it and piloting it for several years. And I have to say, it's one of the things that we've published that I'm truly the most proud of, and really excited to have Scott Rush on the call. Scott is the team lead for the Habits series with GIA, and he was formerly the band director at Wando High School in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. He graduated from the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston and the University of South Carolina. And he's currently the co-conductor of the Charleston Wind Symphony, which is a semi-professional ensemble in Charleston, South Carolina. And under his direction, the Wando Symphonic Band performed at the 2007 Midwest International Band Clinic. And they were recipients of the Sudler Flag of Honor administered by the John Philip Sousa Foundation. And his marching bands were also two-time BOA Grand National finalists. Scott has coordinated pretty much all of the resources that we have, along with several other very, very talented co-authors. And really, I think I want to talk as little as I can to make sure we have as much time for Scott to go through his presentation and for you to ask your questions, that which we will get to, as I said, at the end of the webinar. So again, please use that Q&A panel and ask your questions. And with all of that, I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Alec. Before we get started, I want to thank Brian Gibson and Matt Reichert and Alec and everyone at GIA for setting up the webinar and GIA's commitment to music education. Of course, I want to thank everyone, each of you, for taking time tonight to be a part of this webinar, and that includes people who are going to watch it after the fact in its recorded form. So I'm really, really excited to share this with you, and I'm excited to share it with you, but my screen just froze, and I'm going to have to I'm going to have to redo this. So give me just 1 second. This happens sometimes. So let me redo this. My apologies. Okay, I think we've got it rolling now. So the first thing I want to say to you is it's really important to us that if you decide to use Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician, that we want to build a relationship with you. And I've put here on the screen my personal email address, I put my GIA email address, and everyone on our team is here to help you. If you need any support this summer and the fall, let us know. That means if you want to have a Zoom call, set up a Zoom call, we'll be glad to do that. If you want to do any kind of professional development with this, we'd love to do that. You can even email me. I'll give you my phone number, and we can talk through anything about the curriculum that you'd like. Our team of people, Jeff Scott is a middle school band director. He's been teaching for 33 years. Kevin Boyle, who I know is on this call, he's been just finished his 16th year, I think, teaching. Marguerite Wilder has been teaching for 30 plus years. I think she may be on the call as well. And so our team of people, we're here to help you. And we really want to build a relationship with you. The book has been out this school year. It was field tested the year prior. And so I want to start by showing you a video of teachers. 4 of the teachers on this video are people who field tested the book. They used a very prominent beginner method book prior, and when they field tested, they chose to go with Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musicians. So I'll play this short video for you.
Hi, my name's Tara Melvin. I'm the band director at Autry Middle School in Cobb County, Georgia. And this year I had started to use Habits of a Successful Beginning Band Musician. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the series and the publication. I actually got the chance to pilot it last year before it was published and came out this year. And it's just been fantastic. I was an avid user of another specific method book in the 10 years that I had used it. And this one definitely made me change my mind and switch over.
Hello, this is Susan Waters at W.H. Oliver Middle School in Nashville, Tennessee, and I wanted to talk to you about the Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musicians. It's such a wonderful book. It gives directors great tools, such as what to do in the first 10 days when you're so overwhelmed with beginners. It spells out solfege, gives you exercises for singing, how to teach counting, rhythm lines to teach. It gives you a full curriculum before students ever have instruments, and that's so crucial.
Hi, my name is Adam Vernon Young. I'm a second-year teacher from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and I've really enjoyed using the Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician book with our students this year and last year. It's really hard to find a perfect method book, but I will say that this book comes just about as close as you can get.
Hi, my name is Samantha Mumford. I've been teaching middle school for 11 years. Last year, we switched our sixth graders over to using the Habits Beginner book, and I'm never switching back. We really, really like this book. Our students have a really solid foundation right from the beginning because they're learning a lot of different skills and technique building that some of the other method books don't teach that early. So our students already understand 3 different key signatures, and they understand what they're doing when they're looking at those key signatures. And that has been different from other method books too, because other method books keep them in B flat most of the time. So our students are already just having a really good understanding of key signatures.
I really appreciate the teacher tips on each page for every exercise that are in the conductor's score. For me, conducting and going through each class exercise, those teacher tips are really helpful for me, especially with the instruments that are not my primary instrument.
Something else that I really like about the Habits book is that the lines are balanced between technique and new skill building, and then it goes back to some fun tunes that the students like and they are familiar with, and it gives them that motivation to keep practicing those new skills in a fun way.
Another one of the really useful tools has been the Music First and Practice First software that aligns directly with the book, where the students can pull up the exercise on the screen, play along with it, and it gives them incredibly detailed feedback about exactly what they need to improve. It breaks down their score into 3 areas so they can see exactly where their strong suits are and maybe where they need to do a little bit more practice. I think the most important thing out of all of this is that the kids enjoy the book. The lines are enjoyable, they're well sequenced, and they're learning something on every line, even whether they know it or not. They keep coming back for more. They're eager to go on to the next line because each line is so focused on exactly what they're supposed to be getting out of it. That's very helpful as educators, but also for them as well.
I just really love the sequence of everything, how everything is introduced. It goes through solfege at the beginning, which I had already been doing with my students. And so this would be really a great book for a first or second year teacher who's still trying to find their bearings teaching beginning band, or even for a seasoned teacher who's just looking for a new approach. This book is absolutely fantastic, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone.
There are a lot more light bulb moments, I think, because I've always been frustrated when there are too many new concepts applied to an exercise at one time. And this book does a good job of not doing that, where it's like, it's very clear that this is the new concept. And so if the new concept is key signatures, okay, we're just going to do key signatures, but it's with the pentascale. So you really can assess, do they really understand the new concept? Because you're not trying to decipher, is it the other concepts that they're not getting?
I think we tend to underestimate what beginners can do, and this book certainly does not underestimate your beginners. So I would highly suggest that you look at this book, utilize it in your program, and you will not be disappointed at all. Thank you.
So we've gotten some really positive feedback, and I'll tell you the 3 areas that we've gotten the most positive feedback have been with sequencing and pacing. I think because there are teacher tips and purpose statements for each exercise in the book, that it's very clear about the sequencing and the pacing. We've gotten lots of comments about key signatures and the fact that their students can recognize keys and key signatures better than maybe in the past. I think one of the reasons is, and it's something that's unique to the book, is that when we introduced the B-flat pentascale, we follow that by introducing the C pentascale. And it's not a matter of the idea that a beginner might play a lot of pieces in the key of C. It's to teach them a concept that, as I like to say, we want to keep them out of the high school B-flat, E-flat, A-flat club, meaning that in high school, when they see a B, E, or A, they just automatically think it's flat. And that's because of some of the initial teaching that happens. And so we introduced the B-flat pentascale and the C pentascale. You know, it gets those clarinets having to play in the key of D and trumpets playing F sharp. And it really works well, and they really understand key signatures. And then probably my favorite comment that we've gotten this year is, my band just sounds better. One of the field testers told me that, and I said, even with COVID, she said, even with COVID, the band just sounds better than they used to. So that really made me feel good. So our why for writing the book, first of all, is that we want students to fall in love with and resonate with music now and throughout their lifetime. And we made a really concerted effort to think about skill and technique, musicianship and artistry, and fun. Because if it's not fun for young students, we can't get them to fall in love with music and music making. And so we made a specific effort to do that. And we also wanted to solve some typical beginner problems and teach them more effectively. So we started with the components of playing, of timing, tuning, tone, technique, balance, blend, articulation, dynamics, and musicianship, kind of as our cornerstones for writing the book. And under musicianship, it was really important to use words that were developmentally appropriate. So these were the things that we kind of started. And then Jeff Scott and I each wrote about 3 pages of material that we just wanted to go in the book. And we put our 3 pages together for each of us. And there were just certain things that we wanted to highlight. And maybe some things that didn't necessarily appear in other books. So this particular chart kind of shows you some of those things. We wanted a curriculum for the first days of instruction before they got instruments in their hands. We wanted teacher tips for each exercise. We wanted a purpose statement for each exercise. We wanted to teach them 4 articulations in this book, not 3, as most beginner method books do. We wanted to use the enharmonic ladder. We wanted to use rhythms followed by the same rhythms and pitches. We wanted to prep for habits of successful middle school musician books. So there are about 25 or 26 very specific things that we wanted to do in this book that when we first began, that were really important to us. So one of the really cool things about this book is the way we start instruction prior to students getting instruments in their hands. And there's an evolution that takes place. And first of all, we believe that they should start with rhythm vocabulary. So the very beginning of the book, the pages look like this. And let me say this right off the bat. You can use whatever counting system works for you in this book. You can use one-ianda, you can use takadimi, you can use duta-data, any uses of fruits and vegetables, it doesn't matter. Our feeling is that if you're passionate about a particular counting system, you use that counting system. But you can use all these rhythm charts and the supplemental charts to do that. So we start them with rhythm vocabulary. We also believe that they should start learning diatonic solfege. Now, I will say this, some people feel really comfortable teaching solfege and others do not. It's totally up to you. One's not contingent on using the book. We like to get students singing though. And so we do start from the very beginning, having them do some diatonic solfege. And then from page 5 to page 23 in the Conductor's edition, we have a very sequential way of teaching students, starting with rhythm vocabulary, and then going through using the supplemental solfege. And you can see that when you get the Conductor's edition. The other thing that we do is, let's say that you want to remediate some of the rhythms, or you want to go a little slower. We have rhythm charts. If you go to habitsuniversal.com, and this is all free resources, go to habitsuniversal.com, you can click on rhythm charts. We have 20 rhythm charts that are here. Let's say that you want to do quarter notes. They're all here. We read these left to right. We read them right to left. You can even read them top to bottom. Let's say that you are going to, when you get around number 50, let me get out of this. When we go to number 50, that you want to remediate eighth notes. Well, you can go down to chart number 12, and they're eighth notes here. So these are all supplemental exercises that allow the teacher to kind of go at their pace and pace it with the students as they'd like. We also get to a certain point where after students have done rhythm vocabulary, we allow them to start doing air playing. So air playing basically is where flutes, they do this, their imaginary head joint. We begin teaching them how to tongue. We have some comments here about brass players and talking about contact point. Everybody else is going to do it this way. We talk about where the contact point is, where the gum and the top teeth meet. And then eventually we get them on their small instruments. And so the small instruments are like flutes on their head joints, brasses on their mouthpieces, clarinets on their mouthpiece and barrel, saxophones on their mouthpiece and neck. And we first of all have them play these pitches that we have here to develop embouchure. We go back and reinforce the articulation that we talked with them about. And then we also apply this to the rhythm charts that they've played. We also have additional resources on habitsuniversal.com for other things. So I'll just kind of go through this real quick. We have drones here. We have this, I'll open this for you to see. We have a chart of the first 5 notes that looks like this. It has the first 5 notes, it has the fingerings, and it has the solfege. We also have duets. We have a document that Jeff Scott, one of our co-writers, put together called Identifying Common Hand Position and Posture Problems with Young Musicians that you can reference as you go through these first days of instruction. We also have a note name game that we use with note cards. The front of the note card is the lined side, and then there's a blank side. And this is the first time we have students write the notes on the staff. And it's the first time they learned that if you write it out, it's B flat, but if they're writing it on the staff, it's flat B. So there's some things that we have. This happens to be in those first pages between pages 5 and 23 in the Conductor's edition. We also have startup clinic videos for each instrument, and I'll kind of give you an idea. This also is on habitsuniversal.com. And the students just click on video and they go to clinic videos, and I'll show you a euphonium clinic video. This is Irving Ray.
Hi, my name is Dr. Irving Ray, and I will be your euphonium coach for Habits for a Successful Beginner Band Musician. For starters, you've chosen the most beautiful sounding instrument out of all the woodwind and brass instruments. As proof, if you translate the word euphonium from Greek to English, that's the definition you find, beautiful sounding. And I personally love to play the euphonium for that exact reason. Every time I play for someone who's never heard what a euphonium sounds like, the reaction I always get is, wow, what a gorgeous tone.
So we thought it was really important that the students hear a characteristic tone on their instrument from the very, very beginning. You'll also notice that along the bottom here, there are additional clinic videos. So this one says assembly, this one says posture, this one says breathing, and I'll just click through this so you can get an idea. There are about 14 videos per instrument that you can use with your students. I will tell you that if your school happens to block Vimeo, that there's another way that they can access these videos, and I'll show you that right now. We also have exercise videos for each exercise in the book. And so when you go to habitsuniversal.com, the students will be asked to use their access code, which is in the inside front cover of the book. And so I'm a horn player, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put in French horn. I'll put in my email address and I'll put in the code. And the videos that you just saw, the clinic videos, they also appear here. So if the video is being blocked, the startup clinic video is being blocked from habitsuniversal.com with your school district, they can go here. This is housed directly at GIA and they can watch the videos here. So all the exercises are here in the book. You'll notice that for French horns, for the first 48 exercises, there's horns in unison and horns in fifths. And you go all the way through this. So let's say that you wanted to watch exercise number 132. This is a coach's video of that exercise. That's Jeffrey Pilkington from the Kennedy Center Opera Orchestra. We also have something with the videos called Pro Tips. The Pro Tips are pretty cool. They certainly apply to beginners, but you can also use them with older students. So this is Cecilia Kane. She's going to talk to the students about going over the break, and she's going to give them an exercise using resonant fingerings.
Going over the break is a transition between the low range into the middle range of the clarinet. This is one of the most challenging techniques to master on the clarinet. Using resonance fingering can help maintain smooth transition. The specific fingerings may vary from clarinet to clarinet, depending on the intonation of each instrument. I like to use these fingerings on mine. Practicing a trill exercise between the notes A and B will improve your ability to smoothly play over the break.
To give you an idea, she happens to be the clarinet teacher at LSU. I also wanted to show you one other exercise or one other video. And there's just some practical tips in here for woodwinds. I like this particular one for swabbing.
One important aspect of maintaining your saxophone involves keeping water out of your instrument during and after playing. When we play, condensation builds up in our instrument, which leads to water in our keys and throughout the body. Therefore, it is important to have an appropriate swab available to use with the tenor saxophone. In order to use the swab, remove the neck from the horn and place it beside you. Most swabs will have a string connected to a large weight. I strongly recommend using a silk swab because they are very absorbent and least likely to get stuck in our instruments. Put the weight of the string into the bell and let it drop down into the instrument. Then slightly turn the body until the weight of the string drops down to the other end of the body. Take the swab and slightly pull, allowing the swab to absorb any moisture inside. Repeat this process as many times as needed until you feel all the water has been removed.
So that'll give you an idea of some of the videos that we have on habitsuniversal.com. I also want to let you know that when students purchase Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musician, that they also get a free digital ebook activation code that allows them, let's say that a student, I don't know that a middle school student would ever do this, but let's just say hypothetically that a student left their book at school and they had an assignment due that night. They could go on to the digital site and they could go down to the cover of the book. They would have to put in their access codes. Let's do, I'm going to do flute. And they get to a page where they can open the book. They can select the page number that they want. And it appears on the screen for them. So they do get a digital version of the book when they buy a hard copy of the book as well. It was really important for us to have really fun and exciting background accompaniments for students. The teachers who've used the book this year, one of the things we keep hearing is we love using the background accompaniments in class. Even when students learn concert B flat for the first time and they're just learning one note, the background accompaniments are really cool. Here's just a short version of a video. If you want to see the long version of this video, it is on habitsuniversal.com under videos, but this is a short version of it.
Here's the same exercise with a spectacular background accompaniment. Even if students are at the beginning of the learning process and are only playing one note, they can have fun performing with the background accompaniment.
I love this.
In addition to individual mallet and battery videos for percussion, there are several videos that show examples of multi-percussion performance.
It was also really important to us to have video and video technology and to have a good assessment program to go along with Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musician. This is just a quick tutorial on Habits Universal Interactive, which is our video and video technology program. It's powered by Music First. Here again, if you want to see the entire tutorial, you can go on habitsuniversal.com and look under videos and watch the tutorial. But I'll give you just a short clip from this.
The third reference is for Habits Universal Interactive, our premium content, which includes a back-end grade book and video technology. That's what we're going to look at today. It can be accessed by clicking on the Habits Universal Interactive tab at the top right corner of habitsuniversal.com. Be sure to watch all the way to the end of this tutorial where Jim explains the 2-click method for importing your grades directly into your grade book. Now, let's look at Habits Universal Interactive and join our good friend, Jim Frankel.
Good. I'm going to click on record.
Hey Jim, can you mess up a little so we can see what that looks like?
Bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Sorry about my no perfect pitch. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. All right, so it says I got an 87 out of 90. So if I go underneath here, if you mouse over it, it tells you exactly what you did wrong.
That's pretty cool.
All right, so I've got these grades. I can just click export. But that CSV file that was downloaded can be imported into literally any grade books, but that's Canvas, Schoology, whatever, the Infinite Campus, Power School, eSchool Backpack, whatever a school is using for their report cards, these grades can be imported into it.
So that's a huge time saver. I'll also tell you, if you noticed underneath it with this Music First technology, that if the line is squiggly, that means there's a timing problem. You can also scroll over it with the cursor and it'll tell you like this note was slightly sharp, you missed this note. It'll give you lots of information in addition to the three things, which are right notes, rhythms, and duration. I also wanted to tell you that it will be available on Smart Music later this summer. We've had lots of teachers use Flipgrid this year with it. And one of the other things about Music First that I wanted to mention is that we're currently working on a set of embedded lesson plans in Music First. And the good, cool thing about it, actually, I'll show one to you real quick. Let me move this. So let's say that you're going to go down to number 28. This lesson plan is already done. And so what that means is all the teacher has to do is to go over on this side and assign a due date and then make it visible to students. That's a huge time saver. The videos for each exercise are embedded into the lesson plan, along with some tips for the students. So like if you notice this particular one, it reminds the trumpets to kick out on the written Ds. It reminds trombones that all the Cs, if they happen to have a trigger trombone, they need to play T1. We also have in this particular one some things for percussion, and we also have a little video of the piece of music in context with the orchestra. Now, with that said, obviously the big thing, the home run, happens with the method book itself and the sequencing and the pacing of the method book and the teacher tips and those kind of things. So I'm going to let Jeff Scott tell you a little bit about the teacher tips.
Another major innovation for this book, I think, are our teacher tips. On each line in the book, we offer the teacher suggestions of what they may want to bring out and emphasize for their students. It can be anything from alternate fingerings to correct pedagogy to hand positions to posture to anything that might be introduced new in the piece or reviewed from a previous concept. I think the teacher tips are one of my favorite parts of the entire book, and I know if I'd had them when I was a younger teacher, I would have been much more effective in my early years.
So this will give you an idea. This is exercise number 27. This particular exercise, if you look at the teacher tips, it says for oboes, an F before or after a written D or E flat must be forked unless you have a left F on your oboe. It reminds the brass players that they might want to use their syllables to, ta, and ti because of the arpeggiated nature of the melody at the very beginning. It also reminds trombones that in measure 7, that this C right here should be played T1 if they happen to have a trigger trombone because it's followed by B flat after it. You'll also notice that there's a purpose statement. And then for this particular one, you'll notice down here at the bottom, it encourages clarinets after number 27 to go directly to the clarinets only pages. And the clarinets only pages are on page 16A in the book. I'll tell you a little bit later how you can look at those if you'd like. And we believe that it should take 6 or 7 weeks for the clarinets to begin work in the shallow register first, to eventually go over the break. So they don't have to go over the break until exercise number 73 in the book. But we think after exercise 27, they should do kind of slow, methodical work to get there. I will tell you that if you wait till 73 to do it, you can certainly do it with full band, because on habitsuniversal.com, we have full band accompaniments for the clarinets only pages. So you can do those if you want to do it that way. But especially if you have the ability to work with the clarinets right at the beginning of class, right at the end of class, or even have somebody do a pull out with the clarinets, we believe that 6 or 7 weeks from exercise 27 to 73 using the clarinets only pages is the way to do it. We also, in the book, if we have first time challenges, we put a green shaded box around those first time challenges. For this example, you'll notice that it happens to be an accidental coming back in the measure. We don't necessarily tell the students why the green shaded box is there. We may mention it in the teacher tips, but it kind of opens the door for a guided question from the teacher, about why do you think that green shaded box is there? But we have that all through the book. In the Conductor's edition, it actually appears gray. It's a gray shaded box, but in the student books, it's a green shaded box. We also addressed the F dilemma on oboe. It was one of those things at the very beginning that Jeff Scott and I said, we want to make sure this is taught correctly from the beginning for our oboist. So, the fingering for F on oboe is forked left or right. They only have the left F if they happen to have it on their oboe. But for the first 3/4 of the book, every time there's an F, we label it. And so like if you look at exercise 8 and 9, this says basically, if you have a left F on your oboe, use left F, but if you don't, it should be forked, meaning that they should not use right F on either one of these exercises. At the beginning of the Conductor's edition, also somewhere around page 23, we explain how all of this works and why it's there and when you use certain fingerings for that F on oboe. We also introduced flicking on bassoon. So the universal signal or sign for flicking is the degree sign. We have it marked in the book. Flicking is for A, B flat, B, C, and D on the top of the staff for bassoon. And I'll show you just a quick video that happens to be one of our pro tip videos on habitsuniversal.com about how flicking works on bassoon.
Flicking is a technique unique to the bassoon that helps certain notes speak clearly without squeaking or cracking. Other woodwind instruments, like the clarinet and saxophone, have different systems and keys to help musicians play notes in higher registers. The bassoon works a little differently, and we need to use the flicking technique to make sure that some of our higher notes are clear and in tune. Flicking refers to the use of the left thumb keys on the wing joint while playing the notes A, B flat, B, C, and D just above the bass clef staff. For each of these notes, the left thumb needs to tap the correct thumb key very briefly or flick the key at the start of the note. Let's use A as our first example. For our lower A,
well, I'll show you how this, I moved it forward just a little bit, show you how this works.
For B flat, it looks like this. For B, flicking looks like this. For C, flicking looks like this. And for D, if you have this key, flicking looks like this.
So all that is marked in the book for the bassoonist.
Flicking.
We also have left and right indicators for woodwinds. As you know, if you teach beginner band, you know that especially clarinet players down on the bottom of the instrument, they can do some crazy things with their pinkies. And so we show them how to use both sides of the instrument with the L and right, the left and right indicators for the woodwinds. We also have, when we use chromatic fingerings, we have a V shape in the book showing them those alternate fingerings or when to use chromatic fingerings as well. We have some amazing percussion stuff in the book. Kevin Boyle, who I told you about earlier, did an amazing job of sequencing the percussion curriculum. This is a podcast that he and I did. I'll let you hear just a little bit of it.
Hi, I'm Scott Rush, and I'm one of the writers of Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician. And I'm here with Kevin Boyle, who's another member of the Habits team. And Kevin wrote the percussion book for Habits of a Successful Beginner Band Musician. And we're going to spend some time today talking about the features in the new beginner method book. So Kevin, let's start with what are some specific things in the percussion book that band directors and percussion teachers will be excited to see?
Hey Scott, that's a great question. I got about 4 big things that when we started writing the book that I wanted to include in this. I wanted to have a really well-rounded beginner percussion curriculum, embedded in this full band curriculum. And so I wanted to start with the basics. We got 4 basic strokes that we're going to be using: the rebound stroke, downstroke, the upstroke, and the multiple bounce stroke. And the descriptions in the book are simple and clear, and the videos are wonderful on the website. And everything the students are going to play in the percussion world are going to be made up of these strokes. It's kind of like knowing how air moves for wind players. It's the same thing, how the stick responds to the surface. So for the first 4.5 pages, it's all rebound strokes. It's just focusing on that basic stroke with different stickings, quarter notes, eighth notes, timing, and understanding how that functions. We get to the buzz roll on number 31, the multiple bounce stroke, and we start introducing that in quarter notes and eighth notes, isolating each hand and then putting them together. And then on number 40, we get to the accent and tap exercises. Now these involve the downstroke and the upstroke, and I think most percussion teachers would agree. These 2 strokes in combination take the longest for middle school students to really get comfortable with. And so we wanted to devote time to that in the curriculum. And so we have 3.5 pages of these, downstroke and upstroke combinations with space, so the students understand how the stick needs to stop and then to lift for the upstroke, and then space after that note, and then we combine them without space. And also, during these few pages, we're introducing dynamics. So the students are learning the different degrees of rebound from the different distances from the drum, and how that can help with the accent tap understanding, and how the grip should stay the same through all. Rudimentally in the book, kind of going hand in hand with the strokes, we cover 15 rudiments. And they're the ones most commonly found in middle school and high school band literature, as well as their all-state and all-region auditions. And so everything they're playing in this book has application directly later on. We introduce all the rudiments with the one-handed exercise first, and then the hands are combined to form the rudiment in the context of the song. And this is really just the old-school, tried-and-true way to master rudiments. Yeah. A lot of band directors also ask me when they're going through their students' music, for like their snare drum music for a piece, they want to help put sticking in that music, and a lot of band directors don't know like standard sticking. Do I alternate the quarter notes, or do I keep them on the right hand, and how does that relate to eighth notes and 16th notes? Well, all of that is kind of laid out in this book. So the beginning, you open it up and you see consistent hand motion in quarter notes, and then alternated eighth notes. And then we go and do double stroke eighth notes, so alternated quarter notes in relation to that, to kind of set up the macro movement and the subdivision to that. Mixed in with all of this rudimental development, we cover a dozen accessory percussion instruments, and these are the ones that you'd find in traditional concert band music and percussion ensemble music. We try to get one on each page as kind of an anchor tune, like you guys have for the winds. It's just a rhythm exercise, but it gives the student and the teacher a chance. It gives the teacher a chance to teach that instrument to them, and they come back later in the book. We spiral back around to those again. And this is part of being a well-rounded percussionist.
So that'll give you an idea of some of the percussion writing. Kevin did an amazing job. I also wanted to mention a couple of things to you. First of all, there are, when you're writing lesson plans and you're looking at your standards, there are certainly folk tunes and melodies from around the world in this beginner band method book. And I also wanted to let you know that we see this book as a year 1 plus the next half year. So we see it as a year 1.5 book. And after that second half year, naturally goes into Habits of a Successful Middle School Musician. And we prep a lot of the exercises from Habits of a Successful Musician, middle school musician, are prepped in Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musician. I also wanted to let you know that if you go to giamusic.com, and up on the search engine, up in the right, if you'll put in Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musician Conductor's Edition, it will take you to a page where you can actually look at or peruse the clarinet book, the trumpet book, and the percussion book. So it's all there. If you go up here in the search engine and you put in Habits of Successful Beginner Band Musician Conductor's Edition, it'll take you to this page, and you can look at the clarinet, trumpet, and percussion book. So I am going to stop sharing my screen right now. See, we have 20 questions, and I want to make sure we have enough time to get to those questions. And Alec, if you'll feed those to me, we'll just try to go through them.
Great. So the first one from Peter Norrell, I think you just answered, which is he sees that the book really covers a lot of material that his current method book covers in at least book 1 to 2, or maybe even book 3. So he wanted again to know, do you see the book lasting through the 8th grade, 5th through 8th grade, depending on the program that they're in?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, in our field testing, what we found was the younger the students who were field testing, it took them longer to get through the book. And the director can pace the book as they'd like. Just to kind of give you an example, Jeff Scott, who's one of the co-writers in his program this past year, he starts students in 6th grade, and they got through about 145 exercises out of 197 exercises through the first year with his beginners this previous year. And so we do see it as a year 1 plus the next half year. Good question. And I think it depends on your schedule and how many times you meet per week and all that kind of stuff as well. Good question.
Great. He also asked about concern about potentially a lack of repetitive exercises, that other books might have a dozen or more exercises for a particular skill, but he didn't see that as much in this book. That he says sometimes there can be more than one skill in a certain exercise. So how do you respond to that critique? Okay,
yeah, so I think first of all, if you look at the purpose statements for each exercise, it's really clear about what we wanted to do with the exercise. And we were trying really hard to make sure that there was clarity and really trying to zero in on one particular concept per exercise. But there's always a sequence that gets you to an exercise where it is a culminating exercise. And when we do that, we actually give you some teacher tips about how to scaffold instruction for the students to be able to do that. And then we always follow it with something called an anchor tune. Kevin mentioned that in his little part about an anchor tune. An anchor tune is actually an exercise right after a culminating exercise that may be a little bit easier to kind of bring students back to home base. So I think that if you go through and you evaluate the purpose statements and realize exactly what each exercise is designed to do, I think you will find the sequence and pacing to be just right in the terms of, you'll have to make it for your program, but I think you'll find that it will get you where you want them to go. It's really, we really see it as a kind of a growth mindset model.
I do notice that also you have some supplementary activities and exercises too on the habitsuniversal.com webpage too for particular areas that need additional reinforcement, which are free.
Yeah. Yes, especially rhythm and solfege. There's tons of resources there that you can, use them as supplemental materials, and you can paste those as well as you like.
Great. So Henry Heitman asks, what is the rationale for slightly changing familiar tunes such as Lamb Chops, The Good King, and Lost Polly? Is that to keep students from just playing what they know and actually reading the music?
Well, it was a combination of two things. And the first one is just kind of, I don't know, I call it middle school, as you will. When we had some discussions about just things being fun for students and fun tunes, we also thought it might be fun to just change the titles a little bit. But there was also a kind of a secondary idea, which is that for some of the tunes that are like that, they are what I would consider to be a pure version of that particular tune. But then there's some others where we might change one little thing about it. And we did that on purpose to teach a particular concept that we were doing in terms of the purpose of that exercise. So those two things kind of in combination is what made us go that route. You'll find that as you go a little further in the book, that kind of changes a little bit. And you'll also notice how the folk tunes are identified when you get there as well.
Here's a question from Riza Baker. She wants to know if you have material such as playtests, rhythm exercises that is set up and ready to use with Canvas.
We don't have anything ready to use with Canvas, but I will tell you that we are working on that set of lesson plans for Music First. And to my knowledge, we can adapt those plans to use in virtually any platform. So if you wanted to get in touch with us, Marguerite Wilder and I are currently working on those lesson plans, and we'll be glad to work with you to make something work for you with the lesson plans that we're working on right now.
Great. Jay McCulley asks, how is the book compatible with Schoology? I've been using the standard book for a few years and really excited about using this beginner band book as well.
Yeah, so you probably noticed, and I don't know if he mentioned it or not, but Schoology, if you use the, I'm assuming you're asking about the technology. If not, you can clarify the question. If you're talking about the technology, you can use the Habits Universal Interactive Assessment Platform, and the grades go into a back-end grade book, which can then be produced into a CSV file, and those can be imported directly into Schoology and with one click. It literally is export and import into Schoology. So I'm assuming that's what you're asking, but it's really a time saver, and it is definitely compatible with it.
Great. Back to Peter Norell. What are the characteristics of a band program that you think would make students successful with this book? Is it an everyday book, or is it also applicable to students that only meet, say, once a week with their bands?
I mean, I think it really depends. You know, I have a saying that goes, it's not the exercise, it's the teaching behind the exercise, and it's the teacher behind the teaching of the exercise that makes the epiphany moment. And so ultimately, it's the teacher. With that said, however, every great teacher needs a resource that gives them the tools that align with their pedagogy. And so I think literally you can use this book however you'd like, and I think it would work in various circumstances. And I will tell you that, and I won't go into the long version of this, but when we field tested it, it was really interesting. I think I said this earlier, but the younger the students, the slower they went, but they still moved at a really good, steady rate. So I think, like I said, everybody's schedule is slightly different. Some people meet a certain number of students a certain number of times for a certain number of minutes. And I think it will work based on our field testing. It will work in any situation.
Great. Amanda Tumbleson wanted to know, what is the representation of musicians in the coaching videos? Are there people of color and women? And as I think she asked that fairly early on before seeing some more examples of the diversity of the content for the videos, but wanted you to answer that as well.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we have African-American, Asian-American, and I'll tell you another thing that we decided to do, and you know, it's because these people are really good at what they do, but our trumpet coach is a female and our trombone coach is a female. And sometimes people don't necessarily think of those instruments as being played by two fantastic players who also happen to be female. So we have underrepresented, you know, players in that sense. Yes.
Great. Whitney Amos wants to know if the Habits Universal and digital resources are available for all of the different Habits books or just the beginner books.
So Habits Universal Interactive, in terms of the video and video technology, is only available for the beginner books. With that said, both Habits of a Successful Middle School Musician and Habits of a Successful Musician are on Music First and Smart Music. So if you wanted to use either one of those platforms, both those other two books are there for either platform.
Great. Someone asked about us working on a beginner string book, which I said, yes, we are working on that. They want to know how closely that's going to sync up, though, with the beginner band book, or if we even know at this point.
I don't know that we know at this point. I mean, obviously with keys as an example, that would be a challenge, but we have started that process of beginner strings book, and we're really, really excited about it. Great.
Is the, from Karina Washington, is the teacher perspective, in the teacher's perspective, are you able to see those timing and intonation details of every student's assessment?
Yes, you can. Mm-hmm.
Great. And how much of it is premium content? I teach a small rural school with very limited budget.
So the Music First platform and the Smart Music platform cost money, and a Flipgrid does not. So just in those three as an example. And I will tell you, just as a point of reference in our local area, that a number of our schools actually have used ESSER funds this year, and they will use them again this coming year to help pay for the technology, the ESSER funds that were associated with COVID. So that may be something you could look at too, and talk to your administration about the possibility of using ESSER funds to use that technology.
And I just want to also emphasize that the beginner book in itself comes with a code which accesses all those videos, all those accompaniments, many of the supplemental materials. So the only premium content is either the Music First or Smart Music components. Everything else is included with the basic price of the book.
Right, and it's free, yep.
So Jameson Stout asks, how soon are the chromatic fingerings for woodwinds introduced in this method? Approximately what number?
I'll have to look. Somewhere around 100.
Okay.
I'm going to have to actually get back to me, and I'm going to send me an email, and I will give you an exact answer on that. I'm kind of flying blindly on that question, but I'll send me an email, srush0@yahoo.com, and I'll give you a definitive answer on that.
Great. Do you recommend teaching mallets and drum at the same time or separately?
Well, I think that's a teacher preference. I think a lot of what we do here is that we start students on mallets. And matter of fact, I was having a fun discussion with a teacher the other day who's currently using the beginner band method book. And she told me that they had to play mallets for a certain amount of time. And then she picked a particular exercise in the book that they all had to kind of audition on to make the transition over to snare drum. Now, eventually, they all do all of it, right? And the way the book is sequenced, you certainly want to cover, the rudimental exercises, as Kevin talked about, the 4 basic strokes. There's certain things that you certainly want to cover, so you don't want to skip over anything. But yeah, I think it's really up to the teacher.
Great. So Ellen Wall says she's looking for a book that she can use to reteach last year's beginners without them feeling like I'm keeping them in the same beginning book. Would this work for a supplement for that purpose?
Absolutely. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I think that a lot of us are going to find that this year we're going to have basically 2 beginner bands, but with one of them in a slightly different place than the other. And this book is perfect for that, especially when you consider that we see it as a year 1 plus the next half year book. And so the sequence of it will work. And I think this would absolutely do what you need it to do for that situation.
Great. I see we're at 8 o'clock Central, but we're going to keep going with a few more of these questions. And so please bear with us, and we'll get through as many of these as we possibly can. So one person, Taylor Norwood, says he has the hardest time playing test lines. Do you have any suggested rubrics for testing kids?
Yeah. So are you talking about rubrics for like when you're doing the tests themselves? Is that what he's talking about?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
let me tell you this real quick. So on the inside front cover of every book, they're playing tests in the book. I don't know if you can see this.
Yes.
It's a sequence of playing tests, and it goes test 1 through test number 22. And we have rubrics, basically habits rubrics that will work with this as well. So if you want to send me an email, srush0@yahoo.com or scotr@giamusic.com, I can make sure that you know exactly what we're talking about in terms of the rubrics. I'll be glad to show it to you.
Great. So Deb Farrington says, I only see my students twice a week, even though I'm at middle school. Will this method be something that can move them faster or be able to give those students more independence if they use that for their middle school kids?
Yeah, so I definitely think that's true. And I think it'll definitely work in that situation. I think, it's one of these things where they can work independent. They can also work independent using the assessment programs, whatever you would like to use with that. But I think, here again, I think the way the purpose statements and the teacher tips are designed and sequenced, I think will certainly work in that situation.
Okay, great. Someone said their district continues to support cultural competency goals, and they found that their current method book, they have to skip around some outdated literature such as Stephen C. Foster melodies. Do we feel the exercises of habits have recognizable melodies for students that support diverse music?
Yes, and I think first of all, I think there's two answers to that question. One, we showed the slide near the end of the folk music and the world music that is in the book. And to be totally honest with you, there were a couple of tunes that we didn't put in the book because we knew some history behind the tunes themselves, and so we chose not to include them in the book.
So Lisa says, can we reactivate codes in the books if they're used for more than 1 year? I can answer that one.
I was going to say.
We just had that question come up for the first time. And yes, the codes can be reactivated. There will be a small charge. I believe it's $250 per book, but we will reactivate the codes for you for that charge for the year. Okay. What is the earliest point in the habits beginner that you would feel comfortable moving into habits middle school? For example, if you weren't able to finish the beginner book, would you wait to finish the entire beginner book before going to habits middle school?
No, I would actually get to about 150, 152. And then you certainly could at that point transition over. And, like I said, we see the yellow book, The Habits of a Successful Middle School Musician, to start in the middle of year 2 of instruction. So, depending on when you start your beginners, that's how we see it. And so, but yeah, if you get around 150, 152, 153 right in there, you can certainly logically go into habits of successful middle school musician. Good question.
Great. Hugh Corbett asks, what repertoire level would the students be prepared to perform by the end of the method?
Well, I think probably about 2.5. Grade 2.5. We do at the end, I think it kind of depends, possibly grade 3. I will tell you that we cover 16th notes. We cover an 8th and 2/16 notes in the book as well. And so I think, that's kind of an interesting question, depending on how particular music is graded, like in your state and things like that. But we cover, 16th notes, an 8th and 2/16 at the end of this book. So that'll give you an idea of kind of, the grade level. So I would say 2.5 is what I would say.
it's a couple of questions I'll put together. One is, does the conductor's score have a piano part to play along with? And then also, is there a digital version of the conductor's score?
So it does not have a piano part to play along. Do we have a digital version, Alec, of the? Yeah,
yeah.
You have access to it through your code, right?
Right. But what I would say again with the piano is we do have all those accompaniment tracks. And yes, although we don't have a piano score of everything, there's so much diversity of different accompaniments and different styles. You can use them in your class. They're a lot of fun to use. And then otherwise, you'll have to just do some improvisation if you want to use your own piano playing.
Right.
So someone asked, would there be a possibility to have a woodwind only and brass only book for those of us who teach heterogeneous classes? And it might see the conductor's edition as being a little bit cluttered.
So yeah, we don't have anything like that right now. But obviously the book works great if you have heterogeneous classes. But yeah, we don't have any type of just woodwind or just brass scores right now. Yep.
So someone asks if the accompaniment tracks can be downloaded or if you need internet access to play them.
That's a good question. So I will tell you that you need internet access to play them. But if there's a real issue with that, contact us and we can work with you on that.
Great. So, and then I know questions keep coming in, but I think we're toward the end of our time. I do want to mention that we are recording this and it will be posted to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel for GIA in the coming days. And we really do appreciate everyone's time. If you have additional questions that we weren't able to get to, please do email Scott. Scott, what's your contact information?
It's srush0@yahoo.com or scottr@giamusic.com. And I really meant that at the very beginning. We want to build a relationship with you. So reach out.
Please do. We're super excited about it. I know we've worked with some school systems about some system-wide adoptions. We have individual dealers that we're working with as well. We want to be there to support you. Scott is full-time with GI, so not only is he an amazing author and thought leader and clinician, but he's also here to help folks with the transition and help you be successful with transitioning over. And hope you'll consider this and be ready for the fall. And we're really excited and very much appreciate your time today. Scott, you want to say a last word?
Yeah, just thank you everybody for being with us. And thank you for everything that you do for young people each and every day. And we're here to help you. That's what we're here for.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care, everybody.